All right, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you are able to, please turn your videos on so we can see everyone's faces. I want to welcome everyone back to our second meeting about parks, recreation, and trails. My name is Malini Sims, and I'm a principal planner with the town. And I'm joined tonight by Renee Overa, who's a senior planner with the town, and Rosalind Epting, who's the Parks and Recreation Director. So all of us are joining tonight to help support you through the discussion. As always, before we get started, though, we want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to introduce themselves. So if you weren't at the meeting on the 10th, if you'd please raise your virtual hand so you can introduce yourself to the group. So James. Oh, and James, you're muted. Just one moment.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. James Stacy, 4-year resident of Oro Valley, transplant from Southern California. Great place to live here. I was on vacation for the last meeting, so I apologize for that, but I was in the East Coast and it just didn't work out time-wise.
No problem, James. Thanks for joining this evening. Councilmember Rob? Oh,
There we go. Finally got myself unmuted. Elizabeth Robb, yeah, I'm on the council now and 26-year resident of Oro Valley.
All right, thank you for joining. And then Gail? Oops. You're still muted, Gail. There you go. Oh,
Now,
yes.
seems to be troublesome to get unmuted. Gail Mateer, I've been a resident of Oro Valley since 2016. I am involved, I'm president of Preserve Vistoso and just love my community.
Great, thanks for joining, Gail. And then Bev? Oh, I saw your hand up, but it went back down. So Bev with the County Line Riders, did you want to introduce yourself? You are muted as well. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. And I do have just a short presentation before we get into the discussion tonight. Just one moment. All right, so the last time you met, which was on April 10th, you guys provided a lot of additional guidance to help craft goals, policies, and actions for the 10-year plan. So our focus tonight is to walk through those drafts to make sure they reflect what residents said last year, but also reflect what your group discussed a couple weeks ago. As always, I do want to emphasize the word draft because this really is our first attempt to capture everything. These drafts will continue to be refined and evolve and will be sent back out to the group for further wordsmithing and review. Again, tonight's focus though is just to make sure that they capture everything and that nothing is missing. So our aim for the meeting tonight is to achieve consensus that the drafts are headed in the right direction. So as a group, you define the word consensus during the orientation back in January, and some of your definitions are shown on the screen. To summarize, consensus is that it's something that everyone can accept. We may not like everything in it, but we accept and agree that it's what's best for the community. Please keep this in mind as we proceed tonight. I also want to just give a brief overview of what goals, policies, actions are, especially as it relates to the 10-year plan. So the goals are big picture, kind of answering what are we striving for? This is our desired result. The policies are the bridge between the goals and actions. So it's the path to achieve the goals. And then those actions are really those specific task or charge for the town to take to make sure that these goals are being met. Now, last meeting, you guys gave a lot of great ideas about specific classes or facilities you'd like to see in Oro Valley. And really, the charge with the 10-year plan is to make sure that the goals, policies, and actions are prescriptive enough to meet the priorities for the community, but also broad enough to stay relevant over 10 years. We can definitely add details to the drafts where needed to make sure that it's clear of what residents wanted, but do keep this balance in mind as we walk through the drafts this evening. Again, our charge is to create a plan that honors what residents voiced over the past year and what we heard through a statistically projectable survey, as well as events around the community and through an interactive website, is captured in the guiding principle that's listed on the screen to the right. Now, this guiding principle is what helped guided our discussion a couple weeks ago, as well as this evening. And at the end of this meeting, I am going to check in with this group to make sure that it accurately captures what was heard. And just lastly, before we start our discussion, I just want to remind folks of the ground rules that everyone has accepted. We need everyone's help to make sure that the meeting's efficient and productive. So I do ask that you stay focused on the area we are discussing so we can get through everything this evening. And similar to previous meetings, or if this is your first meeting, we will be using a Zoom whiteboard to go through the discussion. Just a reminder for folks, you can navigate the whiteboard yourself to help with your view by using the navigation menu in the lower right-hand corner. You can pan in or out or use the hand icon to pan around, and this will not disrupt anyone else's view. Now, we are going to be going through the goals, policies, and actions and moving around the whiteboard a lot tonight. So those are also linked in the chat, so you can open them on your own device to follow along. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and launch our whiteboard for this evening. Just one moment. Okay, so for our whiteboard this evening, we're going to kind of go through some of the areas we discussed a couple weeks ago. We're going to start off in our blue columns. This was discussions about trails. We're then going to go over to our green column, which is programs and facilities. This includes programs for children and families, as well as indoor facilities. And then we're going to wrap up our discussion about the draft goals, policies, and actions with our purple category, which was about volunteers and funding. And then again, we do have those guiding principles that we want to go through this evening with the group as well. So I'm going to scroll us over to the blue group. And again, if you're following along on the PDF attachment, you'll want to go to the pages that have the blue columns. So when it comes to trails, we talked about connectivity, safety, signage, amenities, and promotion. We also discussed the Festoso Trails Nature Preserve as part of Oro Valley's trail system. And I do want to mention for some of those folks that I recognize from the trails meetings, the 10-year plan will complement the Trails Master Plan. And so we are making sure that they are working together. The Trails Master Plan, though, will definitely get into a lot more detail than the 10-year plan will. So on that note, let's start with our first chart here. When it came to connectivity, we discussed maintaining connectivity, having better access to shops, as well as in neighborhoods, connecting to the loop, and even having pathways connecting to parks and other areas in town. We also talked about Oracle Road and how there needs to be better crossings to get across Oracle Road. And then also having more trails. And again, this is where that connection between the 10-year plan and the Trails Master Plan kind of comes in. And then lastly, we talked about safety. And some new information you guys gave us when it came to safety was having looking at the steepness and the design of the multi-use paths as it relates to also curves in the road. So we're going to start off, we're going to review, and we're going to look at goal 4, policy A, and let's start off with A through 4 to start us off. So give everyone a moment. I zoomed in a little bit closer. So 4A and A through 4, if you have any questions, areas for clarification, or anything that you think is missed and needs to be added, please raise your hand. And Bev, I see your hand is raised if you want to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I finally figured this out. You mentioned the Trails Master Plan. I'm wondering if Oro Valley is collaborating with the new Pima County Trails Master Plan.
Yes, so we, in addition to the trail stakeholder groups, as part of the Trails Master Plan, we are working with all regional groups as well to make sure there's coordination. Yep. Very good point, though. Thank you. Okay, Hal?
Yes, I'm wondering about the language of A1, working action A1. I'm not sure how that will work in a lot of cases, requiring a developer to provide. I mean, if you've got a small development site, really, I don't know how you provide the kind of access you're talking about here, unless it's a very large development where you might be able to dedicate a certain portion of the site to a trail connection, for example. I'm not sure how this is going to work. What's your thought about that?
Sure. So currently we actually require this. So if a development goes in and there's trails nearby, they have to also put trails in the development itself to connect to it. So a good example is there's the development Saguaro Viejos and right on La Cholla and Naranja. So when they went in, they have the Poppy Trail going through it, and they had to create trails and a system within that neighborhood to connect to that trail. Similar, there's sidewalks to the school nearby, and ways for even the La Mirada subdivision nearby to connect to it. So it won't connect to everything, but if there's definitely, and right now with most of our developments being infill or surrounded by existing uses, we do require that connectivity from the development to those places, if that helps clarify.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And then Emily, and then Gail.
Hi. I just wanted to share, if anybody's struggling with unmuting, you can press the space bar to unmute yourself quickly. And then so what I really wanted to share, for A1, when it says access to schools, I could be totally wrong, but can you require that of charter schools? And is there a way to, like, I live up in Rancho Vistoso and I pass Lehman, and it's just so weird to me that there isn't like crosswalk there. Is there a way to require that of all types of schools?
So right now they actually just put in a crosswalk, not on La Cañada. I think that's probably where you're thinking about for a crosswalk. There is one on was it Sunkist Drive now, a new crosswalk. They have the teachers out there. Yeah. So that's very new. But when it comes to crosswalks from schools, we do look, it has to be warranted through studies. And I apologize, this is a planner trying to speak engineer talk here, but that is my understanding. It has to be warranted. And I think, for instance, Lehman, they did study it and it wasn't warranted to have one across La Cañada at this time.
But this goal will still apply to all schools whether it's a charter or not. If it's warranted, it doesn't matter. It'll get a crosswalk. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the explanation.
And this would be for if there was like a development. So for instance, Lehman was there before the subdivision right to the west of it was there. So when that subdivision was going through the review process, there is a connection from that subdivision, not on Sunkist. There is one on Sunkist, but even in the middle of the subdivision, there's a walkway to the school. So that was a requirement when they went through the process. And then I think Gail was next and then Rosa.
Oh, thanks. I'll apologize if this one was brought up because I wasn't at the last meeting and I'm not sure if it falls here or under safety, but bicycles going through the traffic circle at Moore and La Cañada. because of the way a lot of money was spent to put in beautiful bike lanes to get them around the circles, but bikers don't use them because there's a yellow speed bump there that they have to go over in each of the bike paths. It's really weird. So they're coming through the circle with all the traffic, and it's really dangerous. So I just wanted to point that out if nobody else has got it. And like I said, I'm not sure if it goes here under safety, but I'll just put it out there.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I don't think that was brought up before, so appreciated. Rosa and then Maureen.
So in looking at this now, and I don't know if I don't think we captured this in the notes, but we didn't mention specifically under accessibility, ADA accessibility for some trails. I know we talked about it somewhere, but I don't know which meeting it was, about like giving a ranking or a difficulty to trails so that people would know whether that was for them. But we probably should mention, looking at ADA. I know that when and if the gods ever shine on us and we make improvements at Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve, there will be ADA trails around the pond that we just got approved. And so that would be like, something that I think throughout the system we should look for, where places where people who are a little bit mobility challenged would, we might want to evaluate that, because I know we have a lot of trails, but how many of them are good for people who have to have flat surfaces and, not steep, in the conjunction of the idea of the steep inclines and the curbs and the things like that. So anyway, that's
Yep.
my comment.
Thank you. Yeah, we could definitely add that in. And then Maureen, did you still have a comment?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I just lowered my hand, thank you. Just to answer what Gail raised, I'm one of the cyclists who goes through that roundabout all the time, probably about 4 times, maybe 5 times a week. And as a cyclist, for me, it's much safer to go that way because I'm just a vehicle in traffic. I will yield to cars if they're, if it's not my right of way. Cars will yield to me if it is my right of way. And I just follow through the same measures if I were driving. The little crosswalks that are off to the side, they come up very quickly. It's hard for vehicles to see if you actually stop and put on the crossing light. And most cyclists who go through the roundabouts are experienced cyclists. They don't want to stop to have to put on a crosswalk light. That's why they're out in the road to begin with and not on the trails or the paths. So I think it's just that a lot of drivers are not used to seeing cyclists do that. But here, this community has a lot of very experienced cyclists. And I've never seen a problem between cars and cyclists. Everyone seems to mind each other's space pretty well. Just my opinion.
Okay, so maybe Maureen and others who cycle in town, are you saying that it works the way it is now? It's just different, or
I think it works fine. Again, as the cyclist, it's a little hard as a cyclist if I have to stop, if it's not my right of way to get into the roundabout, because of course accelerating on a bike is a little bit more challenging, but it's no different from if I'm making a left turn, say from La Cañada onto Tangerine. If I'm going north at that point, I'll just get into the turning lane as if I'm a motor vehicle. And when it's my turn, whether I'm going through on a flashing yellow or on a green arrow, I will go through when it's safe to go through. So I just don't see that it's necessarily a problem. It's more a matter of, the experienced cyclists will be out there. The less experienced ones will choose to be more on the paths. That's generally the way I've experienced it. But I see cyclists through there routinely every day.
Okay, thank you. Bill and then Cheryl.
Yeah, so I'll just agree with what Maureen said and just add that it's, as a cyclist, you kind of look and see if there's a lot of traffic, then you will go through, then I usually do go through the, the dedicated path, but it slows you down, you have to stop. So if there's not a lot of traffic, I'll just go through it like a normal vehicle, which is what we're entitled to do. And I think it's working fine the way it is.
Okay, thank you. And then Cheryl?
Oh, there we go. Okay. My space bar didn't work and I thought that was such a good idea. I just want to make a comment. I guess they did some work on the MUP going down Tangerine Road, and it looks like they've placed a stop sign at each of the intersections. And in terms of safety, somebody on a bike just completely blew it as if he never even saw it the other day. Now, it was not an issue because I was, slowing down to stop anyway. But people, I'm a little bit concerned that people are going to, who are driving in a car, are going to expect the bike to stop, and then they don't do it. And it's just a little bit of a safety concern, but I don't know what we can do about that.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. And I do know in another group, you bring up a good point. We did talk about even having more education and information out for cyclists, especially those visiting, so that and even with etiquette and things of that nature. Maureen, and then back to Bill.
Well, I've mentioned this at several other meetings, but generally, the cyclists who are more experienced will not ride that path if they're going in the direction of traffic. So if they're going eastbound along Tangerine, they will ride in the shoulder/bike lane, because then vehicles have to yield to you because you are a vehicle in traffic, and anyone looking to turn can't just turn in front of you. Those stop signs, again, bikes don't like to stop. They really should be a yield and not a stop, if anything. And there should really be crosswalks that give the cyclists and the pedestrians the right of way there, because it's almost impossible to go through and have, especially it's going to be more of a problem, I think, at Naranja, now that you've got the north entrance open and vehicles start to turn in on the weekends, and it's very difficult if you're cycling westbound on the trail. So again, it's intended for the less experienced cyclists, and they often, just have trouble with stop and start. Again, there's no easy answer. It'd be nice if, the motor vehicles could yield to the bikes at that point, because realistically, they are making the turn across a travel lane.
Okay, thank you for that context, Maureen. Bill?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, the bicycles have to follow the rules of the road just like a vehicle would. So if they blow through a stop sign, that's on them. That being said, I can tell you as a cyclist, if the stop sign's at the top of a hill and I look around and there's no cars coming, I'm not going to stop. So, but that would be my fault if I got hit. So.
Thank you also for that context, Bill. Okay, any other comments on goal 4, policy A, or actions A1 through A5? Okay, I'm going to move us down then. So we also, those were all good segues into the next one, which is talking about safety. And for those of you who have been in multiple meetings, especially if you in this group started off in the safety meeting, or if you came from the meetings about transportation, this may look a little familiar. It has been updated based on this group's conversations. So we're looking now at A6. So I'll give everyone a moment. Roberta.
Yes, hello, everyone. I have noticed I am sort of a hyper person and a very fast walker. And I have noticed that the crosswalk at the community center, I forgot the name of that street, the one that leads to the apartments, goes back and forth. I'm a really fast walker, and that is a short time to be crossing that very, very busy street. And you know how fast some people go, and they don't always stop in time. Look, I don't know. I don't know if this is an Oro Valley thing, a city thing, or a county thing, or what, but I hope that you will reconsider. You talked about timing. Certainly hope you will reconsider and look at that one, because if I'm really fast and I can barely cross, I can imagine what other people do. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. So the third bullet point, we do have study crosswalk timing, because we've heard it definitely on other streets. We just put where needed, but does this group feel that we should have some examples if there's specific areas? The where needed kind of makes it so hopefully we would go study multiple of them, but would like to hear from the group. if you think that's sufficient or if you think any more detail needs to be added. Emily?
Could you add like where needed or requested? So like someone could speak up and say, you know, I can't cross this, and then we respond to it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, other comments on A6? Looks like, oh, Bill?
Yeah, so with regards to shoulders, paved shoulders, address the width of paved shoulders in areas of inadequacy. This is an excellent cycling community. The only place that I've seen a problem, and it's a really bad problem, is on the north, what would it be, northeast corner of First and Changerine. As you're going through there, the shoulder narrows down basically to the width of the curb. And I know it's I guess as the city sees it, south of Tangerine is a bike path or a bike shoulder, and north of Tangerine is no longer a bike. Once you get north of Tangerine, it's over. It's not considered a bike path anymore, but it's really narrow there, really dangerous. Probably the most dangerous place in Oro Valley for a bicycle.
Thank you, Bill. And that is one that I think was a theme from several meetings. And at one point we did have on that bullet, that fourth bullet, comma, such as First and Tangerine. So does the group think we should add that again? It seems like that overwhelmingly has been the area of most need when it comes to paved shoulders. I'm seeing a lot of head nods. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep us moving along. So the group also talked about signage and amenities. So we can look at this table as one. So wayfinding signs, having access points. I will say that some of the signage comments were definitely made with regards to Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve. And the actions, it would be for all the trails and multi-use paths in Oro Valley. But to capture that in these actions. Looking at the goal, we have goal 5, policy A, and then working actions A1 through A5. We also then talked about amenities, having shading, drinking fountains, even bike or pump stations, tire stations next to trails. Give everyone a moment to read through this one. Bill.
Hey, so with regard to signage, that can get really out of control. Somebody in one of the meetings suggested having signage even saying Home Depot is here, kind of thing. And really being out there on the loop almost daily, I can tell you that there's a rental company renting e-bikes and renting regular bikes, and those people are given a paper map that is pretty much worthless, and they're always lost. And really what they need is signage for the major turnoff points. You know, like which direction is Rito and how far is it, and which direction is, where anywhere where the trail splits is where they kind of need signs. We don't need to get out of control with signage. And as far as bike repair stations, those tend to get vandalized, and I wouldn't spend the money on it if I was in charge of money.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. And in the policy, that is one reason we put where appropriate in terms of some of these amenities, because, on an unpaved natural dirt trail, it probably isn't appropriate to have some of these things all over it. So point well taken. Elizabeth?
Ha, got unmuted. Yay. On 3A or A3, I suppose, talking about the ways to get information out, putting some of the etiquette and the maps, sorry, fingers in the way, on the Explore OV app. would be good for the folks who are from out of town, particularly if they get the lousy maps from the bike shop.
Yep, thank you. And then Emily, and then Cheryl.
Yeah, I was wondering if the Trails Master Plan, I know the goal is to come up with like a map. So could we, I'm assuming it's going to be too big for printing it out, but could we create like a virtual QR code that we could distribute to like bike rental places to partner with them so they don't have to give the map that's not great and instead can use the map that we create, like some way to give what we have to them so it's better.
I do believe part of that plan will be to have more electronic options. I know with one of the regional groups, talking to even other jurisdictions, they were saying that, even big signs with maps are going out of style, if you will, that it is more virtual. But I know from this group also there was, I believe, some conversation of still having the opportunity to get both for those who want it, but not putting too much priority in the paper maps. Cheryl, then Bill, then Rosa.
I don't know if they still make it, but Pima County used to do a paper map that folded that was for the loop basically. But I guess if they do, maybe there's a possibility that we are able to include some of our major ones onto that. And then this is probably out of place, but it just dawned on me with the county acquiring Kelly Ranch on the other side of Oracle. That may be something that within 10 years we should target to somehow get a safe crossing over through that.
Yep. And Pima County, Roz, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they still put that out. I think I've seen it at our front desk before. But Roz, do you know if...
I'm actually not sure on that one. I've seen some out there, but I'm not sure if that's still out there or not.
Yeah, I was say I'm not sure if they're how old they are. They may just be
That too. I don't know if they're outdated or not.
And then Bill, and then Rosa.
Yeah, so I think Emily solved the map and signage question with the QR code. I think that's the best thing I've heard. And you could put those QR codes strategically throughout, and then you're not trying to update maps because you can update them online a lot quicker. And it's just amazing how many people are lost out there. And most of them probably have a smartphone that they can deal with that. So I think that's a great idea. I think that's the way we should go.
Thank you, Bill. Rosa?
If we're going to go that way, then we have to include in here that we need to ensure there's Wi-Fi capability everywhere, because there isn't. I mean, a lot of service providers don't work on Vistosa Trails at all. I think Verizon works sometimes, but anyone who knows me knows that my calls drop all the time, and and Verizon's the best. So that would have to be verified if we're going to go to that, because I don't know if other places are as bad as we are up here, but we have really crappy service up here.
No, good, very good point. I think Emily's also brought that up before, so we'll make sure that's clear. Roberta, and then Gail.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to echo what Rosa said about, you're going to need some kind of old school way, paper maps, or another suggestion would be maps that we promote that people can download so that from their phone, so they can have them offline. And I don't know if that's already available, but I do that with a lot of apps. And, if you already have it, then Wi-Fi doesn't even matter. QR codes, I mean, I know, believe it or not, there's a lot of people, there are a lot of seniors in this community and people who visit, and some people are still, believe it or not, stymied about QR codes. So you need, I think, an alternate way would be good. And then another thing is, I know it says here about educational programs under the under A3, and I guess that is sort of general, but my thought is that I think there's going to be a lot of sticker shock come February. everybody bought their yearly passes at $75 to Catalina State Park. Next February, when those passes are up, everybody's going to go, oh my God, $200, can I afford this? And I think that there's going to be a bit of a gap in there. And perhaps that would mean outreach to schools and facilities, even like a presentation at the community center, presentation at some of the resorts where people can pass things out or show a downloadable app, that kind of thing. Really reach out more, because I do a lot of research and it still is hard to find stuff about places I want to go and walk and hike and bike in Oro Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ruth?
Hi, I was just going to echo what Roberta said. Yeah, that Wi-Fi is not really good in our valley. I'm not sure why, but if we just need to encourage that all these trails are on, like All Trails and Trail Forks. I think we discussed that at the last meeting. If the trails are up there, then you can download them prior to leaving, and at least you don't need to have a Wi-Fi to trek yourself and see where you are. But again, you need to know, and you need to have the software downloaded. But I never leave the house without downloading my maps, because the same thing is that Wi-Fi just doesn't work, everywhere we go around here. So, but yeah, that was.
Thank you, Ruth. So what I'm hearing is definitely a balance between technology and other ways to access information. Okay, thank you all. You're not seeing any more hands raised. I'm going to move us down. So the last part we talked about was about promoting trails. I did move in some of your comments about just promoting recreation in general to this section. And then we also talked about Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve. But let's start with just the promotion ones now. So if we could focus on goal 5, policy B, and then actions B1 through B4. And then we'll get to Vistoso. And you'll see B4 is a duplicate of the one we just talked about. And I think on B2, we could definitely also add on to that with the conversation we just had about having it in multiple mediums for people to access. Emily?
Yeah, I was looking at B1, promote walking and biking as a healthy transportation option. I live up in Rancho Vistoso, kind of like near the top of La Cañada, and I often think to myself, like, wouldn't it be so nice to like walk to a coffee shop or walk to the store? But it would take me forever, like from where I am at that point. And even my kid's school is Painted Sky, so I would have to cross more, and it's still pretty far. And so I wonder, like, we can talk about it all we want, but some of the houses are just too, realistically, if you're a family with young kids, it's just too far to walk or bike somewhere. And I'm not sure I have a suggestion on how to solve that, but there's nowhere to walk to from my house, is what I'm saying.
Sure. Sure, and to your point, B1 may not make a huge difference for a lot of folks, but may still be useful for those who it could help. But point well taken, yeah. And Roberta, did you have your hand up? I thought I saw it
Yeah,
up.
I'm sorry. No, I agree with Emily. I mean, you're out in the middle up there, it's like, where am I going? It's 10 miles to the views even. But The other thing is though, I mean, this is part of the plan. This isn't exactly what we're talking about, but now that there's going to be more infill and some apartments and places like that. I mean, at least where I live near Lambert and La Cañada, I mean, there are a lot of places that are very walkable, but I think that in general, people only think of Oro Valley as a non-walkable town. So yeah, that would mean either promoting walking and biking as a healthy transportation option to those who live near those places, or long-term planning where things like, if you have kids, a place to hang or a place to have coffee or something is sort of built in more in these developments. And I agree with Emily. I mean, I don't know if I really have an answer or anything like that. It's just sort of the way it is. Anyway, just throw it out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Roberta. So I'm adding for B1 based on both of your comments is maybe it's promoting to people that are near a destination. And then Emily?
Yeah, as I'm thinking about that conversation, I know that they were talking about at La Cañada and Tangerine recently, they were talking about like a storage facility being put in there. And I was like, no, literally anything else, something that like I could walk to. So maybe there is a space. I mean, there's a lot that's undeveloped right there along La Cañada to promote, like if something that people could walk to and enjoy and use, rather than just another place to store things.
Yep, that's a good point. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving us down then. So then we also talked about Vistoso Trails Preserve, especially when it came to restoring the area, revegetation, and making sure it has attention on it. So this would be C, C1, and C2, and then A1, which is not a duplicate at the moment. So Rosa?
So, once again, I would want the word restore in there somewhere, or we need to work this through with the idea that 10 years from now, we don't want to be champion weed pullers for 10 years. We want to be able to make real progress on this property over the next decade. So that would mean some verbiage in here about not just maintenance, but having and not just a standard for maintenance, but a standard for the quality of our parks, in terms of, do they meet the goal? And for this park anyway, it's for Vistoso, it's supposed to be restored back to some form of Sonoran Desert, maybe even enhanced Sonoran Desert, based on the documentation that guides the property. But just pulling weeds over the next 10 years isn't going to cut it. So we need to get a little bit more creative there. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I mean, we do have to pull the weeds, but I don't want that to be the main focus of our standards. Our standard, when we were discussing standards, I'm talking about if you walk into like Riverfront Park and the grass is dead and there's holes everywhere, and like, would that be a nice park? If you go to one of our town-owned golf courses and let's say they didn't water the sod for 2-3 months, would that be a beautiful place to play golf? So when you walk on Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve, I want you to see the Sonoran nature that was here before they bladed it. And so in the next 10 years, there should be some progress made towards that, I guess is my point. And so it's not just about pulling weeds, it's about having an environment that doesn't require much maintenance because it's been dealt with in a way that enhances the quality of that park. So
thank you, Rosa. Gail?
Yeah, and so I just would support what Rosa said in terms of Vistoso Trails is it's beyond just, you know, pulling the weeds. We need to try, we need to see some definite planning around how we're going to begin to bring the property back to restored Sonoran Desert. And we know that it's going to take a long time and it's not going to happen overnight, but you know, we're slowly trying to move some things forward with the town, but I would love to see this really baked into the plans so that progress continues to be made. It's just, you know, it's really, I guess, about parity and equity to a certain extent to, you know, voice what Rosa said. We certainly have high expectations for what Naranja Park is supposed to look like and what the golf courses are supposed to look like, but you know, we don't seem to have any standards or expectations around what Vistoso Trails should look like. And if we really want to promote that as one of our, you know, really wonderful places to bike and hike, and it's ADA compliant and all of those things, it needs work. And the second comment I would make is just around invasive species. I think we need to be really careful in terms of, you know, providing resources to people to just pull invasive species, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can make the problem worse, particularly with some of our really tough invasives like stinknet. If it's not pulled properly, you're just going to create more of it. And so I just think we need to think that through in terms of how we approach having citizens removing invasive species before we send people out there and tell them to start pulling things up. So that's, yeah. So I think we just need to think about that.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, and then Hal?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could maybe add to C2 to say something like remove invasive plant species and restore native species throughout the town, and then maybe expand on the bullet points as well in that respect. It's not just removing the bad stuff. We also want to restore the good stuff.
Yep. Thank you. Good point. Okay, other comments on these ones? And yeah, we definitely can update the C1. So it's more than just maintenance. Your comments for C2 and then A1 also, that is not just maintenance standards again, it'd be quality as well. And then the restoration. With that though, is everybody accept these as headed in the right direction? You want a thumbs up or shake your head? Or if not, please unmute yourself so we can discuss further. Okay. I'm going to move us on then to our green column. So if you're using the PDF link or following along on your own device, these are the pages that have the green on them. For this, we talked about programs and facilities. Specifically, there was great conversation about programs for young families and children, indoor programs or indoor spaces. We talked about sports facilities, and then we did go into more detail about specific improvements like shade, water features, ADA accessibility and maintenance. And then we wrapped up this area about talking about events and partnerships. So I'm going to move us down to our first green column. So when it came to young children and families, needing more focus on programs for that age group, having more, making sure that age group is involved in town decisions and can help plan for those. Looking at maybe updating the master plan as it did, seniors were underserved when that went through, but now that they have more services, may need to be expanded to make sure young children and families are focused on. Again, when it came to classes, there were a lot of specific classes given. And so for the 10-year plan, we did make that broader because we don't know what types of classes people will want in 10 years. So I do want to mention for these ones, when it comes to the types of classes, the specific types of programs, or specific types of sports fields and courts, that's where we put that all into A1. And it's really updating that master plan to get into those details so you have more of that engagement with the community and more of the data. So some folks brought up, oh, we need to research what's being used by who to know where the gaps are, which we don't have that for this plan now. So I'm going to move us over. So comments on goal 5, which is a duplicate, policy D, and then let's just start with D1, D2, and A1 for now. And I do want to mention, if there is a duplicate, any changes we make to the previous suggestions you guys had, we'll make to all of them. Rosa?
Just against an A1, I would say establish maintenance and quality standards for the parks. And I'm not sure Vistosa Trails Nature Reserve is even in the master plan. I think the one that was done predated the purchase of it. So it would have to be brought in to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as an entity like any other park. It does have a master plan that we're not using. The council went away from it, but it's not in the town master plan. So I think that would be a goal to take inventory of and bring in all parks into the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Okay, yep, we can add, as part of that update is to make sure everything's been added, anything new's been added.
Yes, and the master plan was dated 2021. So Rosa, you are correct. So.
Okay, Emily?
I'm looking at D1, and I like that you're looking for feedback from all users. My question is like the verbiage all users. Like, I'm thinking about if I go golfing, you don't really need my feedback. I'm not a golfer. I may use it one time, but you don't need my feedback. So I'm wondering if we can look at it more like key stakeholders, something that, like when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about my comment about like when you design a park, talk to moms about how many swings you're going to put in the park. You know, someone may use a swing, but that doesn't mean you need to make sure that everyone who's ever swung has given their feedback. So I wonder if there could be some different language there around all users.
What if it was frequent users? I don't know. I don't know if that helps, but we can look into a way to word that.
I feel I have heard the words key stakeholders quite often in meetings now. So that keeps coming to mind, but something that means like we want the people who have had experience in this area giving their feedback on what works best.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Roberta.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but are we also working on D3?
Not yet.
No, okay, I'm sorry.
Well,
Then I'll wait. Thank you.
There's no other hands raised, so is everybody good with D1, D2, A2? And I'll move us down to D3. Oh,
I have
Emily?
one more.
Yeah.
So like when you say continuously rotate educational classes, do you mean like we're always going to have something new coming up? Like if something works, are we going to keep rotating and taking it away and bringing something new in? Like how, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think it would be, you can, maybe it's always there in the fall, but then it switches to something else in the winter. And Roz, please let me know what you guys do now.
Yeah, usually if programs work, we keep them. And what we try to do though is keep the mix in there. So we try to hear from residents, different people, answering some of our surveys about what they're interested in or getting feedback from the users about, and you start seeing when you start doing this in Parks and Rec, you start seeing those classes start fading and they're just not as popular anymore. Then you start to rotate some other stuff in. And we always keep up on our reading and our classes and stuff. And they tell us new and upcoming information as well as what feedback is from you residents and what we can offer. So we try to put a good mix in there, like camp is there and camp will be there. We provide a service that's needed, but we'll also try to add some other stuff in when we can. So great question.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's just the language that's confusing me about like, maybe it's like continuously cultivate and rotate or continuously research. The way it's written makes me think like you're going to take stuff away constantly, which I don't think
Got
you're
it.
going to do.
Yep, that's a good point. And then Cheryl?
Maybe continually assess the need for various classes or whatever. But that wasn't my point. Just ending up the last conversation. So my question is, in the green column, we have a comment about needing baseball fields. And I have heard them talk about baseball fields for the last 19 years, that we need them in town because the conditions of the Coronado Middle School fields are not that great. And then there was talk that we were going to see if we could make some kind of an agreement with Amphi to use their fields. And I'm just wondering if that is anything that we're still pursuing, or if a baseball field here somewhere would be advantageous in the next 10 years. I don't know.
Sure. So when we get to the partnerships one, we did still include trying to work with schools to use their space. I think it's under the indoor programs. So we could still continue to pursue that. But let me ask the group. So in A1, under the second bullet point, we just put identify program, class, and facility needs. We didn't specify any of those. Does the group think we need to add a little bit more detail, like facility needs such as a baseball field or something of that nature? Again, we tried to keep it broader so that those details can be worked out in the parks master plan update when the data's there, but definitely it's your plan. So I want to hear from this group what your thoughts are. Or Charlotte, especially if you think we need that specificity. Cheryl?
Know if we need the specificity, but I just think it's something that parents keep asking us about it. It's a long time for parents to ask for fields for their kids in this town. And we've really, I'm not exaggerating when I say I've lived here that long and have heard about it my entire time. So at least it would be something maybe that could be put on the radar, but whether you need to specifically put it in this plan, I'm not sure. But Roz can put it in her notebook.
Absolutely. We do use Coronado, just so so everyone is aware. We use Coronado and we work with the school district. Also, there's 2 different little leagues in town. The other one uses JDK Park. The ones at Coronado, that is Oro Valley Little League, and it's somewhat smaller in numbers. And so they're still looking into their future and what they're going to do moving forward too. So we are working with the school, and we do work with the different little leagues that we have throughout the town.
And then Elizabeth, I don't know if you purposely put your hand down, but if you want to raise it again, or
I did. I was Cheryl got around and came up with conclusion that I did to leave it general and put it on Roz's radar, and that's perfect.
Thank you. And then Roberta?
I'm probably the minority here. I'm all for specificity, hard word to say. But because another thing is basketball courts. I mean, the fact that Naranja Park doesn't even have one is a crime. And I mean, you got one in Riverfront Park. I mean, if there are some very, very, very specific needs that people are asking for and people that need to be addressed, I personally don't see why it would be an issue not to add a couple of them. Just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. I'm going to move us down then. So this next section was about indoor programs. Similar to the conversation we just had, there were a lot of specific space needs like playgrounds, gymnasium, golf, things like that. So we did try to keep it broad again under D3, but we also wanted to include all the options you guys gave as a way to increase indoor space. And then A4 starts to get at fees and programs in terms of trying to lower costs for residents to utilize an indoor space or any of the programs. So and then Roberta?
I'll try to be quick because I have a couple things I want to say. Is number one, I think that somebody had mentioned this in another meeting about raising the fee for non-residents. I think not only for daily use, but for class use, for monthly use, all of that. And I know a lot of people in Marana are going to be going to Marana with their new fancy facility, but I think that the classes, the day use fees at the community center are so cheap, it's just ridiculous. I mean, a yoga class costs $15 or $20, $25 outside. So, I mean, that would be a way to raise some money, is to raise those fees for non-residents. And the other thing is I know I'm stuck in my craw about the underutilization of the Overlook restaurant and that building. I guess it's part of the community center building. Oh my God, there's 2 floors, there's locker rooms, there's a huge restaurant and bar, so underutilized all year and certainly especially in the summer. I mean, the fact, I understand, I did my own little sort of not a deep dive background research. I know that it's run by Troon, or the company that used to be Troon. It is Troon and they changed their name, that the restaurant is run by the same company that runs the golf course. I know that's not unusual, but I don't understand why at some point in the future, whenever that lease is up or that agreement, and I don't know when it is up, that the Overlook restaurant, that building should be separated so that building, that facility, those 2 huge floors can be utilized more for all residents of the town of Oro Valley and not just for a couple of people, with all kinds of programs, things to do in the summer, as I mentioned in another meeting, music events. I know they do trivia and things like that. I just really think it's just a crime that place is not being used the way it should. Rather than build a new community center, my gosh, we've got all this space. Thank you.
Thanks, Roberta. And maybe what we could do under that third bullet point, instead of just saying expand, we could also talk about reconfigure or, something of that nature. Rosa and then Cheryl.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said, Malini. I would not expand that community center. We just spent more than $500,000 than we wanted to putting an elevator in, because when you cut into a 1980s building that was put in when there were no codes in Oro Valley, because if you've ever gone up the back stairs in that place, you know that there were no codes in place, okay? They basically slapped that thing together. I just don't think we should cut into that building anymore. Now, reconfiguring some of the inside, that's been done since day one, because it was a racquetball club, basically. And the racquetball rooms have been reconfigured to accommodate all kinds of things. But after that, that elevator experience should teach us a lesson, okay? It took longer and it took a lot more money, and we found things we were like, what? Like, why is it like this? Well, you're going to find more of that if you cut into that building. So I don't think that should be part of the 10-year plan to expand that building. I know that is the vocation of a lot of people to want to do that. But when we acquired that building, we were told turnkey. We're not going to have to build a community center. This is turnkey. Well, this is what we got. And I do agree with Roberta. You could probably reconfigure some of the spaces. The problem is, Roberta, that HSL wants a restaurant for their golfers, even though it's not their property. So that restaurant occupies, yes, a lot of precious space in that building, and it's operated by the golf operations. The thing is when they tried to get someone else to lease that restaurant, no one would do it because it doesn't have visibility off the road. And so it's a great idea if somebody wanted to lease that space and renovate it and have a ball with it. But it just, it doesn't, and then the expanding the hours doesn't pan out, like you just end up losing more money. So it's a real problem, but I would not put expand in that bullet, because I think that there are a lot of needs in the community, and we could just reconfigure space and be good with what we have there. And if we, if they ever decide not to have that restaurant, yes, it would be great to utilize some of that space better for the community, but I don't think we need to expand it.
Thank you, Rissa. Cheryl, and then Emily.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I agree with the last two comments. I don't think that restaurant, even though I know that they need some kind of a snack area or something for the golfers, I don't think they need to have a full service restaurant in there. If you look at the financial reports, they're not making very much money at all. And believe it or not, our former mayor Hiremath, his last budget session before he left office was he brought up closing it completely. And some of the people from the golf club, of course, asked, please leave it open. And I don't know what made the decision change, but he was the one that actually broached that subject. And that was like within the first couple of years of purchases. So anyway, just my comments.
Yeah, we can definitely work on the wording on that one. We'd probably still want to be broad and not give any direction for the restaurant, but all of your points are well taken. Emily, and then Hal.
Yeah, not my comment, but just, odd coincidence. I ate in the restaurant this morning, had brunch there. I liked it. It was great. And I dropped my kids off at the daycare, or the childcare. So that was awesome too. So, I like it. But I'm looking at D3 and I'm noticing that there's nothing in here about like the summer. So really, when we were talking about this, it was during the hot summer months that we were trying to find indoor space. I don't need the town to rent out indoor space right now when it's nice to be outside. We're getting hot, but it's not bad. But like really what we're talking about is the 100-degree temps when vulnerable communities cannot be out in the heat. So I'm wondering if we can change some of the language here to include in the summer or during hotter seasons, because it is a big ask to have an indoor facility. And I don't think that we need something all year round. We are a great outdoor community, but we do need something when the elderly and the young cannot be out in the heat. It's just not physically safe for them. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And maybe by a head shake or thumbs up, does everybody kind of agree that the conversation was more for the summer months? We can make that clarification. Okay. And then Hal?
I assume we're talking about A4 as well here.
Yes.
Roberta sort of brought this up in terms of her idea about charging non-residents more for use of our facilities and programs, and maybe we could use the increased revenues from that to subsidize lower income folks in the community. So that's one way to do it. But another way that we might want to consider, and this is based on, before I retired some time ago, my last job was working in management for a large park and recreation district in Oregon. That rec district had a foundation that could solicit funds for a variety of purposes, including subsidy programs like what we're talking about here. I think maybe that's something that should be explored here in Oro Valley. There's a story in the recent Oro Valley Style magazine about the Chamber of Commerce Foundation. You could do the same thing, I think, for Parks and Recreation in Oro Valley. So I suggest when we have paying for a subsidy program would be establishing a foundation for that purpose.
Okay. Roz, I don't know if you have any information with regards to how this current program works, or
The current well, we don't have a foundation now. I've dealt with foundations before for Parks and Rec. And it's worked well. It was a little hard to set up, but we got it rolling. So I've done that. If you're talking about subsidies, we do have a scholarship program right now for youth, anyone under 18, and they can get up to, I believe it's $300 a year if they give us proof. So whether the family gets school lunches, all they have to do is show us that piece of paper. Or if they're on WIC or anything else that they have, we can give that, and we put it through because we have races right now that actually fund that. So we're more than happy to give that away, and we don't really ask for much. Anyone who's not at that age yet, we just would work towards something with you to try to establish those funds and get you those funds that you need.
Thank
So
you, Roz.
if I could ask a question of Roz. Roz, so the funding for those subsidies right now comes from the general fund, is that correct?
No, Hal, where it comes from is we have a race. So we have one coming up, Roundup at the Ranch. So
Okay.
anyone who registers for it, the money goes right over to the scholarship fund.
Okay.
That's where we put that.
Thank you, Roz, for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And I do want to let folks know when we get to the purple columns, I believe there's some more actions, policies, and goals related to fees, and especially with the non-resident. Cheryl and Emily.
I didn't have any idea we had that program available. So yes, thank you, Roz, for sharing that. So I have a question regarding the word volunteerism, because that's back on the purple page also. And generally speaking, volunteers are not paid. And so I get that we want to encourage people to volunteer, but is that really then the right word to use? Because I noticed that when schools talk about it, they call it, what do they call it? Well, I don't know what they call it. I thought I wrote it down here, but they have a thing like service to the community or something like that. So would that be a better word as opposed to, if we want to keep it consistent with, we want people to just volunteer their time freely?
Yeah, and maybe I think so. This stemmed out of the conversation of possibly offering discounts. I think somebody had made the comments about discounts if they volunteered their time to like clean up a park. So I'll ask the group what your thoughts are. But and yeah, we want to definitely word it to make sure that we're meeting the intent that you guys talked about. So it should be maybe service to the community or something about parks, so it's tied to the parks. So if anybody has thoughts, please raise your hand. Cheryl, I did get your comment down though, so we can work on the wording. Emily?
Oh man, my spacebar trick stopped working. I don't know what happened. So when we were talking about this before, we were talking about subsidizing fees, but also it was the idea of subsidizing programs that the community does not currently offer. So we were talking in Prab the other day about how like there isn't anything at the community center for the ages like 5 through 14 right now. And so the idea that if we're not going to offer it through the community, can we subsidize it for outside of the community center? So can we partner with businesses? I'm not sure what the verbiage would look like, but can we help provide a subsidy or a scholarship for someone who is really interested in doing dance, but we don't offer that in our community center, and doing it in a private setting is very expensive. Those type of things. If we're not going to offer it at the community center, can we provide a subsidy for it elsewhere? Thank you.
We can look into that. I'm not sure even in terms of if we're even able to do that as a town, to provide scholarships for private groups? And Roz, maybe you know.
So I'll give you an example. Like we have in the summer, there's a horse riding class and we actually partner with them. We take a small portion of as a contractor split. So we advertise, we take all the money for them. We have had people before use their scholarship funds, what we have for our subsidy towards that summer camp, week long of horse riding, whatever it is. We can use it as long as we have a partnership with them where it's a contractual obligation. Contractual obligations is a split. Either it's 70-30, 80-20, or 90-10, depending on the program. So we take the small amount, the 10, 20, or 30% of that. And as long as that private industry can fulfill our needs of having the insurance requirements as well, we can definitely put the money towards something like that each year.
Does that help clarify, Emily?
Yeah, so maybe my ask is along the lines of like evaluating an expansion of that to include programs for age groups that are currently not being served through our programs. If we can't envision ourselves providing it through the community itself.
Yep. And thank you, Roz, for clarifying. Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving along. Sorry, I'm just looking, I think I copy pasted this twice, so we're just gonna zip on down past that chart. So that was actually a good segue into our partnerships for programs. We did talk about promoting existing programs that are out there through the town's communication tools, and also even looking at the process for the partnerships. So give everyone a moment to look through it. So we're on 6A, A1, and A2. Roberta.
I think hold on a minute, let me look my hand here. I think we need to assess how and through what channels we are promoting any programs and events, whether it's held by the public library, Tohono Chul, Steam Pump, anything like that, because there's a number of things like, what was this recent thing, this Taste of Oro Valley, a lot of people saying, oh, I didn't know about it or whatever. I mean, I know it was a very hot day, but I mean, I'm not sure if there's always effective promotion from the town of Oro Valley between groups and also from all these groups to the town and people who are interested in coming to the town at large. I've spent 40 years in the media and I was on the air and I did marketing promotions and that was my thing, was media, all forums. And there's just a disconnect between organizations, and there's a disconnect between the aggregate of all these wonderful things going on in the town and these organizations to the public at large. So I think that needs to be looked at, how we're doing it, how we do it, how we can do it, how effective it is now, how we can make it more effective. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will let you know, I didn't include it on here, but very good point. We did hear that from another group as well. So we do have some actions that talk about even doing a survey to figure out what communication methods are best, and then also looking at our communication methods to use emerging options. So as you all know, there's definitely things we do now that, like this meeting tonight, that we wouldn't have done 10 years ago. So very good point. Gail and then Emily.
Yeah, so with regard to the Children's Museum, so I happen to be also on the board of Tohono Chul, and we love having the Children's Museum there. We love seeing all the children coming in the park. It's fantastic. But we bear all the cost of that museum. So, you know, if we want to look at expanding and doing more programming and other things there, I think the town needs to look at how they can help support us a bit financially too. We're a nonprofit and it, you know, it is costing us to have that, have the museum there. So we love it and we love seeing all the kids coming in the park. It's great. But I think we need to kind of work together to see if we can find some ways for the town to help subsidize some of those activities, especially if we want to expand and promote.
Okay. And then Emily?
I was thinking a lot about this from our last discussion, and I have to admit that most of the media that I am seeing that gets me to come to events is through social media influencers. I'll give you the example of the Funtastics is not really well used up from Oro Valley, but there are 3 or 4 social media influencers in our area who have promoted it, and all of a sudden my community is talking about it. And so I was wondering if within here we can specifically say something about evaluating social media use and hiring some sort of like partnering with a social media influencer. Again, I know that this isn't really like, doesn't seem like the most professional, but I know that this is how a lot of people in my community are finding out about things. And I think it is something that's missing right now within what the way that the city is promoting their things.
Okay. And then Hal?
Yeah, I want to get back to the issue that Rosa raised about baseball fields. And Rosalind indicated that we do apparently have an agreement with the school district to use at least one of their fields. I guess the question for Rosalind is, what is the nature of that agreement? Are we in exchange for using a field or fields at a school doing something in exchange? Are we, for example, providing maintenance for that field?
So the fields out there, what it is there's a rental rate on them for the teams, just like they would rent at JDK Park. And we deal with Pima County for they have the land there and the school maintains them. So there's 3 of us all working together and Pima County owns the lights. So we talk about how we keep the rates where they are so they don't skyrocket for those teams that need to use those fields. So they're very comparable to what we use over at JDK for field pricing.
Okay. So who maintains the fields?
The school district does the maintenance on them.
Okay. Because as I said before, I did work for a park district, and in that area, actually, the park district, in exchange for using the fields, maintained them, even though they only use them part of the time. So, okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, I am going to share a different screen right now so we can go through the last chart in our green columns. Just give me one moment. And I do want to let you know you won't see your comments. There we go. You won't see your comments being typed up, but we are getting them, and we will definitely make sure that we do record the meeting, so we'll make sure that they'll be added on. Just one moment. There we go. Okay, so our last set of green items were related to shade, water features, events, accessibility, and maintenance. Specifically for shade was a want to make sure that we are prioritizing it everywhere, especially with any new improvements. Water features, you all talked about the need for safety at splash pads, and then also balancing the needs of having events like meets and swim meets and athletic facilities with the want to have a pool just to go hang out at as a community pool. Events, we just talked about having a wide variety, and then ADA accessibility was brought up, especially at parking lots, and then looking at maintenance. Many of you talked about having contact information for maintenance, especially after hours. And then again, A1 is a duplicate. So give everybody a moment and we can do this table all in one. So we're on 5D, and then the actions D5 all the way through D10, and then A1 again. I also want to remind folks, you're also welcome to use the chat if you are more comfortable putting your comments in there, or if that's more accessible for you. Elizabeth?
There we go. D9, it says improve ADA accessibility at all the parks and recreation facilities, including the parking lots. Do we need to improve it at all of them, or do we need to evaluate and improve if necessary? Because
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good clarification. Yeah, I think the group would agree with that's probably not all of them. It's just those who need it. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Emily?
Hi, I'm seeing here like more shade at Naranja Park for D5. Um, I wish it was specifically like shade the park at Naranja Park, like put the shade over the park play structure. I really want to be specific because there was like shade added next to the fields, but the shade has to be over the playground. That's where we want it.
So on D5, we put it for all parks, not just Naranja, around fields, play structures, and splash pads. But you're saying you do want it more
Like it
somewhere to
is.
out about Naranja.
Yeah, it's kind of like the baseball field conversation. Like you talk about parks in Oro Valley that don't have shade, and every mom's going to tell you Naranja Park. Like
Got it.
that park has to have shade over it. That is
Okay.
like so needed. So I just would like to see like a bullet point that says like at over the shade, over the play structure at Naranja Park.
Got it. Thank you. And then Roberta, thought I saw your hand
Yeah,
up.
no, I was just gonna follow up to the last comment there. It's like not just moms, every human being that lives in the desert wants more shade at Naranja Park. I mean, we have been going over this, everyone we go, grand opening, it's so cool, here's all this cool stuff. And everybody goes there and look around. I saw the faces. They're like, trees, shade, hello, what? Yeah. Oh, but there's 5,200 pickleball courts. Yay! So, I mean, it's almost, I'm making fun of this, I know, but it's almost laughable, the lack of shade. And we know about the finances and the priority, but yeah, I would specifically say everything needs shades, but definitely of all the parks, Naranja Park is just Oh my gosh, I almost feel like just putting in there, put shade under everything at the entire park, put it in a bubble. Anyway, I'm joking. I'm overdoing it, but you know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe head nod, thumbs up. Does everybody agree this is an area where we should add some more, and I'm gonna try to say, well, I will, specificity. Glad everybody struggles with that word. For Naranja Park. Is that a level of priority? Yep, getting thumbs up. Head nods.
Yeah, but I like, I want to make sure that they don't like put a shade in the corner of the soccer field right before they put shade over the playground. Right? Like I am heavily, strongly influencing that the shade needs to be over the playground that we have already built. That area, the whole park is huge. And so I think if we aren't like prioritizing the areas where people are actually really needing it first, it could end up somewhere that isn't as needed.
Okay. And then Cheryl, saw your hand go up.
So I guess I have a question on this. Does the Parks and Rec Board have or department have the option of people purchasing trees to put in parks? Is that something that is there a fund for that could be set up so that people could donate to buy something? Because I don't see where the town's going to have all this money to do trees. And yes, they would be wonderful, and they're going to have to be watered for the first couple years, probably too. So I'm not disagreeing that we don't need shade over there. I'm just asking, is there a possibility of having maybe people who use it frequently, or maybe some of the sports people that rent our fields, would they have a committee that would be interested in helping to pay for some trees?
So great question. We do have a program where you can donate trees. So if anyone's been to Naranja Park and looked over at the small dog park, you'll see a bunch of trees in there. And we have a frequent user at the small dog park who donated those trees. And we have on our website, if you go to the Parks and Rec website, there's a donation, and you can donate trees and you can donate benches. So we do have that option if anyone is interested in that. And I will tell you right now, our goal at Naranja is to plant at least 20 new trees a year. Again, trees have to grow, but we are planting them. We have to run irrigation to them. So we've put in 20 a year. We just put in 20. We have another 20 coming in from a stormwater project that's going on right now. They have 20 trees for us available. So you'll see 20 new trees a year, possibly more each year that we do, trying to help a little bit at least with the shade problem.
Their comments? All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and reshare our whiteboard. Thank you all for your patience. And Roberta, got your comment. We need to promote that donation for tree program so that folks know about it. Okay, so overall, head nod, thumbs up. Are the goals, policies, and actions related to programs and facilities headed in the right direction as first drafts? We will make the revisions as suggested. I'm gonna move us on then. So our third column was about volunteers, partnerships. That was specifically for volunteers and funding. And then again, looking at incentives for volunteers, fees and events, and then the use of funds. So under volunteers, we talked about different programs. So having like kind of like the police volunteer program. Somebody brought up Adopted Trails, which the town does have, having volunteer days, like during Earth Day for park cleanups, partnering with schools, nonprofits, other businesses for volunteers, and then maybe offering discounts for volunteers, which we did talk about. A4 is a duplicate. And then the use of funds and making sure that they're distributed more based on safety or need, not, and that would be part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. So Rosa and then Gail.
So I like the idea, but it has to be timing and fleshed out a little bit more. So adopt a park, a 200-acre park at Vistoso Trails would not be like, you could not adopt the whole park, but you could adopt a section of it or a mile of the cart path or something like that. So it would have to be done in a way that makes it realistic. And then, you know, what I'll add to that is there has to be like the idea of having these like big giant weed pulling days. Nobody's interested in that. I could tell you that I've talked to a lot of people and they're just like, nope, not doing it. Okay, so it's just not things. I mean, I know there are people who go out and do it on Earth Day, but it's unless you know what you're doing and unless, you know, unless you do it like, I just don't think it's for everybody. I mean, we have a lot of senior citizens, and so the adopt a park thing has to be fleshed out. Like, would it be to provide signage, or would it be to like just to go out and clean up? There isn't really much to clean up, and so it could work. Like I would flesh that out a little bit more and make it a little bit more specific. So because I think people would like, for example, be willing to donate a sign or two, or I've heard those types of like comments. So I think we're missing opportunities to get things that we can't afford. So if we could flesh that out, like the cart path, I would do like there's 6 miles. I would let a mile of it be adoptable, and then what you would have to do if you adopted it would be commit to putting up a sign, or maybe donate a couple of things that could go be planted along the edge of it or something. So I think if it's fleshed out properly and the timing of it is at the right time, I think that it could really be useful for a project like Vistoso Trails, because there are people, if they see the town is doing things, that are going to want to join the town. But that's the other part of it. The town has to be doing something so that we're joining what the town is doing, not just out there doing it on our own. So that's my comment.
Thank you. I do want to just clarify for A1, it wouldn't just be Vistoso Trails Nature Preserve. So it could be any park.
Right, but for Vistoso Trails, you can't adopt the park. It's 200 acres. You would have to flesh that out to say like adopt a mile of the cart path or adopt this area or whatever, and it would have to be palatable and done in a way that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's I like the idea, but I just think it needs to be way more fleshed out.
And I just would suggest, I hear you and agree with you. I would suggest in A1, keeping it broad for the 10-year plan. And as part of that, establishing that program, that's where you're fleshing out those details. So, because we don't have the program now, so it would have to be established. And to your point, Rosa, there would have to be a lot more details put in on even how you're coordinating the volunteers. I would just suggest that happen with that establishment versus us trying to think of all the nuances in the 10-year plan. Gail, then Hal, then Emily.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we've been pretty consistent. I know, Roz, we've had this conversation, so I'm sure it'll sound familiar to you, but we're all in favor of, looking down the road and having some volunteer programs for the preserve. But without a plan and knowing what it is we're trying to accomplish and where we're going with the property, it's very difficult for us to get people to want to come out and volunteer and do anything. And so Rose is correct. People are not particularly interested at this moment to want to come out and do volunteer work on the property because they don't know where we're headed with the property and they don't really know what the town is going to commit to. So I think the priority there really is to get that plan together of where we're trying to go and what we're going to do fiscal year after fiscal year. And then it'll be much more productive to engage volunteers because we know what we would be engaging them for and how they would be contributing towards the goals of the plan, rather than just sort of arbitrarily saying, well, let's just, go pull weeds today or whatever. So I think that's a future goal, and I think it's achievable, but I think there's some groundwork that needs to be done before we would get there.
Thank you, Gail. Hal, then Emily.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First, goal 1 and goal 3 are the same language. Is there a particular reason why you did that?
No, it is a duplicate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other question, maybe expanding on this volunteer notion, is would it be possible to encourage the establishment of friends groups for some of these larger parks, maybe Narana, Friends of Narana Park, or Vistosa Trails, or whatever? I know I believe there's a friends group for Catalina State Park. You have a friends group, then it's an ongoing thing. I wonder if that's something that we could consider promoting.
Okay. And then Emily, and then Ruth.
I was wondering if we could create like a fund a volunteer program. Like, realistically, if I bring my toddlers out, I am destroying your park more than I am helping clean it. But I could help fund someone who is not going to cause terror in the park. So could there be a program where people can donate to increase the volunteerism, or to help fund the maintenance of the park? Is there a fund that already happens that way that we just don't know about? Or those of us who can't volunteer, maybe an alternate way to give?
So maybe I think that's kind of along the lines of even what Rosa brought up, is not everybody wants to go out and pull weeds, but some people may want to donate for a sign or a tree or something. So maybe it's expanding even the donation program to include more options, so that if you, and I want to make sure that that's in line with what you're saying too, Emily, is maybe there's other ways to still help without physically going out.
Yes, something
Maybe
that
put that
people
in
can
there.
do virtually.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
put a bullet item, expand the donation program beyond trees and benches, because I mean, obviously you can't do everything, but I think if you expand it, people will, especially if it's a place they like, so that might be a way to do it.
Yeah, like I was gonna say the grad night. I just went on Amazon and like sent them a gift, because I know I can't volunteer for grad night, but I can send them something to use to raffle off. So some virtual way of helping for those of us who can't help in person, I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And then Ruth?
Yeah, I think volunteering is key. I'm the vice president for the Sonoran Desert Mountain Bicyclist. All of our trails that we ride, we maintain. We partner with Marana, with the city of Tucson. We volunteer a lot. I mean, none of the trails are maintained by paid staff. I'm a member of two volunteer organizations that work at Mount Lemmon. We actually go to Mount Graham. I was going every other weekend to Mount Graham for a year. We're all volunteers, but if we don't clean them up, we can't use the trails. And I think at this point but we organize the trail days. We get trained by Tucson, Pima County. And I mean, we're so proud of our trails. We help build them. I think Oro Valley can work with, and that's why I'm part of this group. I think if you partner and make it, so that all the different users are trained, or, and are you really, we reach out to them and say, these are your trails, and whatever, if you have small kids and you can't do the work, there's different ways to donate I broke my foot and I couldn't work on the trails, but I was out there providing snacks for all the trail workers. So, I mean, I think there's a way to engage the users. I think every time I volunteer at these events, people are astonished to hear that they didn't know that these trails weren't maintained by paid staff. And I'm like, nope, it's volunteers. So I think we need to do a better job of encouraging people to volunteer, go to the schools, go to churches, go wherever to say, if we want a nice community, we got to kind of have some sweat equity put into it and make it, so that people are trained to come out and have different levels of volunteerism. So that's my 2 cents. Volunteers, I think they're great. We just need to steer them in the right direction and train them.
Well, thank you, Ruth, and thank you for all your volunteer time. And Roberta, I think.
Yeah, I think that also too, to engage people is to have more like volunteer appreciation parties, gift certificates, things that you could get maybe from local businesses, a free meal somewhere, a book from Stacks, something like that, a little picnic, and then local businesses could provide food or drink or something like that. So, make it sort of fun, and I understand I'd be the virtual volunteer, but I mean, for people who like to get down and dirty, it might be nice to have more coordinated things that are shorter for an hour or so. People are busy. People who do want to get their hands dirty and involved, whether or not they're younger, seniors, whatever. People are busy and only have an hour or two. So maybe more of these, talk about coordinated events. It will be like a couple of hours, and then you get a free, there's a nice big picnic lunch that's catered or something like that, that's free from a community business or whatever. So more stuff that would be fun. And then I know people, you don't volunteer for like a gift certificate or a free meal, but just more appreciation like that, and more making it sometimes a one-time only fun event, because people can't volunteer 5 hours a week, but maybe they'll be able to volunteer 2 hours and do 2 hours good work, whether it's cleaning up or whatever. And then, hey, they get a picnic, they get to meet their neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you. Maureen, then Ruth.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, my microphone wasn't down. I'd like to echo what Hal and Ruth were saying about the Friends groups. I was very active with a Friends group in Oregon. We worked with the local state parks manager on a recreation trail, and we had a lot of autonomy. We were trained on some of the equipment for maintenance, could do weed whacking, working with snowplows. It was a winter area. Could also bring in community service workers, people who were sentenced to so many hours for having done various things that they shouldn't have done. And we could have them out doing trail work under our supervision. We also ran events. So we had a National Trails Day event where we had guided nature hikes and equestrian trail marking. We had the local Lions Club set up to sell lunches at that event. So they brought out their portable grill. There's a lot that could be done. We also were actively involved in fundraising. So we raised money to put mile markers on this trail. This was 100 miles of trail, so it was quite a lot. Worked with the local scouts. It was an Eagle Scout project to design the little placards, and then we sold them for $25, and people could put their names or some dedication on it every half mile. And we were supervising the installation with the scouts, the Eagle Scout projects. There's a lot that people could do, but again, training the volunteers and having some recognition. So this was an actual 501c3 organization, and we wrote a lot of grants where the state parks was the fiscal agent, but we did the grant writing, we executed the grant, they handled the finances. And we wrote the final grant report. So yeah, volunteers could do a lot in a lot of different capacities.
Thank you. And then Ruth.
Yes, just a little bit more information. Like for our organization, we raise funds all year round so that we can provide the free t-shirts during the trail events. We partner with businesses. So like Beyond Bread gives us a $5 lunch, that we provide. We get, say, another bike shop to pay for the lunch. So we definitely depend on all of our businesses to help us promote our, in September, October, November, we have what we call it Brushtoberfest. So everyone knows that 2 weekends out of the month, those months when it's cooler, We clean up our trails. So we try and give our volunteers something to look forward to. And sometimes it's beer and a lunch, because we also partner. Mountain bikers love beer, so we partner with all of the bars in town, the breweries in town, and we have Thursdays once a month, and they donate 10% or what have you. And those are all year round. We're fundraising so that we can buy tools for our maintenance days, t-shirts, pop-ups, food for events. We run the beer garden at the 24-hour event once a year. That's our biggest fundraiser, but all those funds go back to the trails. So, and people like it. I mean, we love mountain biking and we have to work on the trail. So that's how we get more people involved in biking so that we have more hands to go and do trail work. But, Sweetwater, we adopted Sweetwater, that we keep up all those trails at Sweetwater, at Tucson Mountain Park, at Marana. And we work with those land managers because they know what they're doing. They show up to the events and they help train and supervise all of the maintenance that we're doing, or the trail building. In Mount Graham, we worked with the prison. The volunteer we had. Well, they're forced volunteers, but they're trained. They have now, they have skills now after they get out of prison. But they help do some of the big labor that we're doing on trail building. So there's a lot of ways, that we can build more trails and maintain the trails and get people involved at all different levels. If you don't want to do trail work, well, we tell people come out to the 24-hour and help us serve beer. That's fun. That's a lot of fun. So there's a lot of things you can do throughout the year to give back to the trails or the community. And it doesn't have to be, working out in the hot sun, pulling weeds or, what have you. So those are all things that we can work with. All of the different the runners, there's runners, there's the equestrian groups and so on and so forth. So I think we have plenty of people that are very interested. We just need to have a plan, exactly. Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah, so what I'm gathering from the group is we'll definitely expand upon some of the volunteer options and look into the friends. Gail did mention that the Social Trails Nature Preserve has a friends group. They haven't been engaged yet. As her and Rosa stated, there needs to be a plan in place, but again, looking at the next 10 years, what friends groups can be engaged or established to help with some of this. So I am going to move us on in terms of time. I want to make sure you guys have a chance to look at this guiding principle. So on the left-hand side is what we heard through our outreach over the past year. Definitely, I will say Parks and Recreation was, not that it hasn't always been valued, but it definitely came up more this time around than 10 years ago as a high value. And I have a feeling that is because of some of the improvements that have been made over the past 10 years. Again, we did hear, though, the want for more opportunities during the summer, having accessibility, more variety, and then, of course, having bike, pedestrian, and trail connectivity. So the question for this group is, do you think the draft guiding principle accurately captures what was heard over the past year? Are there any refinements needed also to capture something, or capture to better capture the guidance your group gave there? Give you all a moment to read. So again, the guiding principle is kind of in the purple boxes. Emily?
Yeah, so I am looking at the provide accessible recreational options for all ages and abilities. And I keep getting stuck on it because I think it's very equal, but I'm not sure it's equitable. I know that right now I would think that everyone in the community is trying, or in the town is trying to provide programs for all ages, but there are groups that are not receiving the same attention. And so I'm wondering if there could be a way of saying that part, the all ages, that highlights the ages that are not being served at the moment, or not being served as well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay, other comments? And we can look into the wording of that. I don't have a solution right now, but we can look into that to see if we can capture that in some way. It might even need to be a separate one. Elizabeth?
Grow Oro Valley's outdoor and recreational opportunities. Do we want to say grow and or maintain? Because we don't necessarily need to grow everything. We just need to continue some of what we have and then add to it. Don't know
Yeah.
whether that clarification needs to be made or not, but thought I'd toss it out there.
Yeah, and I will say we did hear that that does is consistent with what we heard over the past year. There were a lot of comments about maintaining the existing infrastructure. I mean, and facilities. So,
Okay, thanks.
Rosa?
I think the last one, expand bike pedestrian and, well, I would say expand, I think one of the bullets was expand the trails. So expand the trails and the connectivity for bikes and pedestrians or something like that. The idea that we're gonna, in the next 10 years, expand the trails as well.
Okay. And then how?
Well, following on the discussion we just had about volunteers and use of different groups and partnerships and so on as part of the recreational programs that the town offers. I wonder if we should have a new principle that gets to that point that says that the town will work with the various partnerships and volunteer groups to improve the parks and recreation within the town.
Okay, we can look into maybe some wording there. And how it fits in. Other comments? Can equestrian be added to expand bike, pedestrian, and trail connectivity? We can. I will capture that comment. I will have to look at what we heard. And again, remember that the guiding principles are the broadest of the plan, if you will. And so we may want to capture equestrian more in our goals, policies, and actions. Elaine. So, but we can look into making sure they're included. It's a good point and is missing right now. Roberta?
I understand it's a draft guiding principle and it's overarching many things, but I think that perhaps you might want to consider throwing some specifics in to support a variety of sports and activities. Because I mean, there are sports and activities that I think are over supported. Sorry, just me, golf, tennis, pickleball, that's me. Okay. But I mean, there's other sports and activities that are underrepresented. And I'll just come back to one that I don't even play, basketball. I talk to a lot of kids. They're like, we're gonna get a basketball court. So I think that may be something that, depending on what, the direction was from the earlier phase is be a little specific about the ones that need to have more support and be expanded and the ones that don't. Thanks.
Thanks, Roberta. I would though also suggest on that, we could look into that, but I would suggest that we take your other comments and add that specificity under the policies or actions more than the guiding principle. So I'll capture that. Any other comments on this one? Okay, so I do want to just kind of wrap us up. So for this group, we got, again, congratulations and thank you for the great conversation because you got through a lot tonight as well. So I do want to let you know though that this will be the last meeting for now with this group. This is your last topic area. I do want to let you know though, if you're having so much fun and you're worried that you're gonna miss this, we do still have water conservation. That topic area will start May 1st. So they have a meeting on May 1st and May 13th. You're welcome to join that if you're interested. To kind of wrap up this part of the effort to create the next 10-year plan, we will be sending you all an email with all the groups, draft goals, policies, and actions. We're calling that the 30% draft. So we'll be sending that out via email after our water conservation meetings wrap up. And giving you, and that's an opportunity for you to look at it as a whole and provide comments. So we definitely still want to hear if things are missing, if you had wordsmithing ideas. We want to continue to refine these drafts as we move forward. And then also we will be reaching out at the end of the summer. So over the summer break, we'll be taking all the comments in and continue to work on these interrelationships between each group. And then we'll be asking you guys to reconvene in August to kind of go over that draft plan as a whole. It won't be the same amount of meetings as we are having now, but we will be reaching out to you then as well. But with that, let's see. I do want to thank you all for all of your time. We are over time at 7:31, but hope you have a good night and thanks for sticking around.